welcome. Good night. Good to see all of you. Thanks for coming out. Grab a chair. If you're in the other gym, you need to come on in. We'd like to be timely this evening. We appreciate you spending the evening with us. And so we're going to be done at 8 o'clock. Everybody got that? Just like we do every Wednesday night, 6:30 to 8 is what we do every Wednesday night. And if we're done early, that's okay. But we won't be done late. There's a deal. How's that? Famous last words. Got a bad feeling about those. So really grateful that you came out tonight. You're gonna be probably firsthand to this presentation. This is probably the latest. They'll be the most up-to-date people in the city, won't they, Ron? So Ron Dix here. Ron's a principal partner of Design Collaborative, and he is overseeing the construction, presentation, design on the North River property. He's also partnering with us on our renovations, and he's helped us master plan this site, and he and his team have been awesome to work with. We're really grateful for them. So we wanted you to hear what's going to happen there, because as we've approached this with Ron, with the city, is to talk about these two pieces of property in conjunction with each other, kind of as one big thing as we try to fit in our neighborhood a little bit. But anyhow, Ron's going to come here in just a few minutes. Thank you again for being here. I thought maybe I'd pray for us. And then Ron's going to present for 20 minutes. He'll give you 10 minutes for questions. When he's done, I'm going to present. And then you can ask questions of me, and I'm going to go over much of the stuff I did on Sunday that I went really fast, and I'm going to go slower and give you a chance to react and respond. Then Tim's going to come up and present some of the financial side of this whole idea and how it's going to unpack as well, and you can ask questions there as well. I want you to be informed, okay? That's the most important thing tonight, that you are not uninformed about what's coming and how we're trying to get there and what our plans are. And they're always in flux, and we're growing and learning and changing as we go. So let's pray. Father, thank you for these dear ones to come out this evening, and they love you and they love their church. And we do pray that you would knit our hearts together for the mission you've given us, and then you give us great delight in it. Thanks for the many opportunities and the chance to make your name so great in our city. So help us to be up to the task, and help us not shrink back in fear or a lack of faith, but to pursue hard after you in every way, shape, and form. So we're grateful for you most of all, and thankful to be your children tonight. Thanks for taking care of us. Amen. By the way, we are being live streamed tonight as well, just so you know, for some of the folks who couldn't come. This is Ron Dick from Design Collaborative. Would you guys welcome him? He's going to share with you.
Thanks for having me tonight. So I am kind of a stand-in. I'll talk a little bit about the team that's putting this together. The Wells Reserve LLC is the master developer that is putting this together. That's Todd Ramsey and his crew. So they've developed the St. Liver Apartments, the Ice House, the Field House, AWB condos downtown. Really good Fort Wayne people, really devoted to this property, to your property. About a year plus ago, Headwaters Church really is a key part of this development. Next slide. Is that how I'm supposed to do that? So that's the property from an aerial standpoint there on the left. Wells Reserve and our team, which includes Design Collaborative, Hagerman Construction, from the beginning, almost the beginning, we've tried to include John in your group, because the church really is, your campus really is a part of the North River property. Process-wise then, in addition to Headwaters Church, we've been engaged with Science Central, we've been engaged with the Wells Street business corridor and their leadership, Judy Wire. We've been engaged with the Bloomingdale neighborhood and their leadership. We've really been very inclusive. in the process, or hope to be as inclusive as we can be. Todd runs that kind of a show, really a transparent show. Obviously, the city owns this property, 29 acres, so we've been including them for, actually, Hagerman and DC have been working on this property since 2018. So in earnest last year through the pandemic, and then in January of this year, Wells Reserve LLC signed a memorandum of understanding with the city with a May 11th deadline. That was last Monday, that we had to put together a package. So you're seeing some of the renderings from that package today. So that's been the process. Obviously, the thing that made the press at the mayor's State of the City back a few months ago was the soccer stadium. And so a lot of the focus that went into the press was on the soccer stadium. That is a key component of the plan. They have their inaugural home game this Sunday. They're starting at Bishop Dwenger. They play in the USL. DeMarcus Beasley is one of their owners, so there's been a lot of great excitement, continues to be great excitement with what they're doing, and they're a key component to this, and they've also been a partner. I'm going to miss all our partners. The USL has an architecture firm out of Charlotte called the Odell Group that does a bunch of stadium planning, so we've been collaborating with them all along. So that's kind of the people, the process. The memorandum of understanding was signed in January, fulfilled May 11th with an initial package. We've been meeting continually with the city and the planners and the engineers to just really kind of have an open dialogue. This morning we met with the Land Collective, which are the designers for Riverfront Phase 2. So there's just been a lot of good dialogue and integration in the process. So that's the process. And project goals, and as I was staring at we always start our meetings with these project goals just so that we remind everybody on our team, and we meet weekly on it as a group, these project goals. And as I was staring at these, I thought this is the North River property or the North River project goals, but it sure seems like there's a lot of commonality with what Headwaters Church is trying to do. At North River, we are a destination. We're really looking to make this a destination location, bringing folks from the county, but from other parts of the state and the region to this site. Community connections are important for Headwaters Church. They're extremely important. I mean, just the process that we just talked about and who we're trying to include, that's also important. Making community connections, and you'll see on the plan, we've reestablished the grid of the streets, including 6th Street, including 4th Street, we've actually brought Putnam through the site, so we're really trying to reestablish the grid to make a really good connection between our site and the Wells Street and the Bloomingdale neighborhoods, much like what you're trying to do, not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually, all those things that you guys are trying to do and doing. 24/7, 365 vitality. Again, I know, John, we've talked about this, your buildings, and eventually filling these buildings up all the time is an important part of what you're doing. That's really the drive for this project too. Again, the soccer stadium has gotten a lot of the play. I think they play 20 games during the year. It's kind of hard to make this whole site economically viable based on 20 games, so it's pretty important that the other amenities or the other things that are coming to this site are vital and used all the time. Authenticity to Fort Wayne. Eventually, we're continuing to explore ways to do this. Some of that is in the architecture. We've got with Science Central and with this complex of buildings and some of the other more industrial kind of buildings in this neighborhood we're trying to fit in, but we're also really trying to pay attention to the scale. The large elements of our project are more along Clinton Street. The smaller elements, which include some housing, are more in the Harrison and Calhoun Street areas, so we're trying to scale those kinds of things down to the neighborhood, but authentic to Fort Wayne. We're on the heels of Promenade Park. We're on the heels of Parkview Field in the minor league the award-winning Parkview Field, the award-winning Promenade Park. This sounds kind of egotistical, but and we don't do these things for award's sake. But we think that Fort Wayne deserves an award-winning place. We've got other award-winning places, and we're trying to make a spectacular place here. I've already described our process of the collaborative approach, and in the end, it's got to work economically. So that's the developer in Todd Ramsey usually, actually, he doesn't really put that at first. His favorite one is share. The 24/7/365 is what's important to him, but it's also got to pencil out. Next slide, please. So this is an overall view, and I know for those in the back, and I got my designated hecklers up here, they wanted to be right in there to see this stuff, right, Bill? So this is the overall view of the plan. So from an orientation standpoint, we are hovering over Science Central, looking to the south and to the west. So obviously Headwaters Church is in the upper right-hand corner of this slot. So that if you can read it, it says parking F. That is from a master planning standpoint, a new parking lot or an extension of your parking lot that John will probably talk a bit more about later tonight. That's to the south of this building. Then as we move north to south, Putnam Street, we continue Putnam Street, and at least today, and we've been talking hard with the city engineers about this and getting their blessing, getting the traffic engineers considering this, reestablishing the grid, actually bringing Putnam through and swooping around and tying it into Elizabeth Street to be able to come through the site. And that leaves a mixed-use facility space there in that corner. That's in the lower right-hand corner. Then obviously you can see the soccer stadium that is at the heart and the north end of the development, flanked by, and you're able to, so as you're driving by on Clinton, you're able to peek into the stadium, but it's also flanked by, these are labeled as mixed use, but we continue to talk to development partners around. There's the potential, even today, the discussion was that might be some apartments. So we continue to be flexible with what these elements could be. There's a hotel, and Todd's got several hotel folks looking at this development. They overlook from the south. In soccer, it's not called an end zone. From the south side of the behind the south goal, we'll do it that way. And my son and daughter play soccer. They're going to kick me for not knowing that stuff. South goal. There's a hotel overlooking from the south. And then you can't see it in this diagram, but we'll show some of the renderings. 6th Street then continues on between to the south of the hotel, and then there is the largest piece of the development south of 6th Street is a large field house, open span. Wells Reserve and the field house that they run out north, and the ice house and all the youth sports. They're really trying to attract more, and this market is there. It continues to be there, and it will. This facility will have turf. It will have the ability to do soccer, volleyball, lacrosse, futsal. What's the one that I should be playing with the paddle? Yeah, lacrosse is the one. Anyway, all kinds of athletic and youth sports within that space. How am I doing, John? That's the field house. There's a parking garage that's attached to that, and then as we continue to move toward the river, an event center, 3,500 seats for basketball, more for a concert, and that is then the most valuable pieces of property then are near the river, and these will show up better in the renderings, but they're again mixed use office and apartment living. On the south end of the site, overlooking and tying into the promenade, tying into the riverfront development. So east of Calhoun are apartments, and further east then on Harrison are some row house apartments. So truly a mixed-use site with the sports, athletics, destinations, mixed-use office, mixed-use apartments, some retail as we continue to come out of the pandemic and get retail users. That's also happening. So if you could just slide through some of these views. So this is obviously over the Martin Luther King Bridge, looking to the north. What you see in the foreground is the Phase 2 riverfront development, and then the mixed-use buildings along that 4th Street. In the center of this is kind of an arched form. That is the main entry into the facility from the south, off of a public plaza. You would enter there. If you're going to a basketball game, you're going to go into the space and you're going to turn left. If you want to go from this direction, if you want to go to the soccer stadium, you go all the way through the building. It's actually a kind of a city street within the building, kind of a mall-like space. And then to the right would be the large field house. Next slide. So this is that public park that would be out in front of to the south of those mixed-use buildings. Again, over from that park, great views of the skyline. And again, this is another public plaza, really trying to integrate a lot of public uses. Promenade Park's been a wonderful addition, so this is another miniature park. You can see the food trucks pulling up there, lots of activity, 24/7, 365 vitality is what we're trying to achieve there, retail on the first floor. So this is on the upper level of the event center and the concourse overlooking obviously the river, overlooking the skyline. There will probably be some restaurant opportunities up on this floor. Next slide. And then this is 6th Street. I'm standing on, in this view, we're standing on Clinton Street looking to the west, 6th Street. So you can see the scale of the field house to the left, the scale of the entry into the stadium on the right, and the hotel entry would also be nearby, or just where that yellow bus is. So again, the idea with 6th Street is if there's events going on, much like the landing, we have the ability to close it down and open that to the public. If there's a soccer game and folks are coming out of the soccer game and going into the field house, that all happens right here. Again, the ability to have food trucks and just a lot of excitement in that stretch of 6th Street. And more importantly, reconnecting it to the grid and having really good, strong pedestrian connections to Wells Street. Again, this is hovering over the soccer stadium, currently planned for 5,000 seats. This is I was talking at the outset with somebody in the back talking about the schedule of all this. And if you think about Parkview Field and its development, it's been a 10-year trek from when they first built the ballpark and the initial parking garage to the Harrison a couple of years later, and then the hotels continued to build with our final hotel just a year ago. So it's gonna take time for it to look like this. The stadium initially is going to be 5,000 seats. They're playing at Dwenger Stadium this weekend. I think there are 3,400 seats at Dwenger. So it starts at 5,000 as they move up in the leagues. I try to equate it to our days, Brad, of baseball. This is Tin Caps is minor league baseball. There are different levels in the USL also. So they're going to start in the single A, and then move on up as they continue to get facilities, and Fort Wayne gets behind this. Hotel to the left there, and that's an aerial view of 6th Street. Field house to the left, parking garage behind, and you kind of see peeking over the top of those are the 4-story apartments that front Calhoun Street, sorry. And a nighttime view of a soccer with the hotel in the background. And this is from the hotel looking to the north. And that's where we are today. Next steps for us then is the submission of this package with finances was turned into the city on May 11th, and the next steps we'll continue to meet with them and hopefully head toward a development agreement with the city, between the city and Wells Reserve LLC. And I'll take questions. Oh, my word. Sir. The question was, with increased traffic load, what will happen to Wells Street? We'll continue to work with city engineers on that. I'm not sure that Wells Street's going to see a great increase in traffic. I still think Clinton is going to take the brunt, mostly from the north. Hopefully Harrison Street from the south, as we come up past Promenade Park. And again, one of the things that I think has been a success with Parkview Field is, especially when a game is over, people walk. The hope would be that people would park over at Wells Street and they would walk and have some big-eyed fish or something like that. So that's really kind of the connection. I'm not sure I'm answering your question about the traffic on Wells Street, but I know as we talked to Judy Wire and the Wells Street neighborhood, they were excited that there was that the parking deck was there to help alleviate some of the, or at least support some of the pedestrian traffic. Sir. Yeah, if it was approved tomorrow, the soccer folks want to, the first phase is probably going to be the soccer stadium and the field house, because those are the biggest needs. If it was approved tomorrow, they would be playing soccer there fall of '22. That's their desire. That's their desire. And I think it's more likely to be fall of '23 probably, just because we're not going to get approval tomorrow. So yeah, they want to move fast. They've got some financing behind it and some support behind it. The field house is the same, in the same vein. There's a big need for that structure. There are actually a couple of different entities around town that have been looking at putting up turf, and we've been talking to them. So we're trying to, again, coagulate all those folks that are talking about the same thing. So field house would be next. The hotel would be a part of that that initial development, and the apartments that I talked about that would surround the stadium also. Again, the developer for that, I mean, is pretty hot to get the apartments going. That's the goal for, no, everything I just said, to me, that's probably, even if it were approved tomorrow, that's probably a 3 to 4 year process. Everything that I showed, the total build out, the developer and I'm in agreement, is probably a 10-year task to get to that point. And, there are other details. I mean, we got streets to fix and utilities to work on, and oh yeah, there's an AEP power line that kind of comes through that space. There's still a little bit of cleanup yet to do on the site. So I think realistically, even approved tomorrow, we're talking 2-3 years for some of the initial development and a 10-year full-time build out. Yes. To be determined wherever the market goes. I mean, we're pretty much staying within the limits of the property that the city currently owns. I'm sure the city planners are starting to talk to folks. I hope from a planning standpoint. I know from a planning standpoint that's happening, but we're going to see how the market adjusts to this. Much like, again, around Parkview Field. I mean, it's, again, 10-year development, and you're starting to see some things happen in the surrounding grid neighborhood. Sir.
Question. How do you feel for the neighborhood? What percentage of the people who live here rent versus own property?
The question was, what percentage of people in this neighborhood rent versus owned? I'm not the real estate expert. If there's somebody in here, my gut would tell me that it's probably more rental than own, but I don't have any statistics. That's probably something I should know, but I don't.
That's my thought too, and that's what brings the question is, what's great about these projects is they bring vitality to the neighborhoods, they bring investment, people's property values go up. The negative about these things is the people we're here to serve.
Right. Right.
Is there any thought of how we're going to manage that so that people have a place to go and where they can afford?
Yeah, I'd love to enter into that conversation. I do know that the apartments that we're talking about on the west side, they are, I mean, it's the same developer that is developing the Club Soda parking lot and also developing the apartments by by Promenade Park, and their statement is they want this to be more the workforce able to afford these apartments. Again, the housing is a different. I mean, the single family residences or the rentals in that neighborhood. That's probably a bigger fish than our job to fry today. But I'm 100% with you that that's something that we need to start talking to the city about. To be determined. The question was, repeat your question. Let me make sure I got it right. The question is, will the parking garage be free? I doubt if it's for free. It's probably pay to play, depending on the usage. It's really hard to make free parking garages pay for themselves. It's harder. It's hard to make for-pay parking garages pay for themselves, even harder when it's for free. So it would have to be supplemented from somewhere. Thank you so much for your time. I think we're done with the questions.
That's not what's on here. Oh, there it is. Showed up. Thanks to you, Ron, sharing with that. And the one question you asked, Dave, about housing, the neighborhood is slowly becoming ownership from rentals. It's already moving in that direction. And I don't know how fast it is, but I think the number is maybe 40% rentals, and it might depend what part of the neighborhood you're into. Spring Street's kind of a dividing line where it gets a little more rental-ish toward the river, from there towards State. We just did neighborhood surveys last week. We knocked on about 500 houses' doors last week, and that was from Huffman Street, which is one street south of Spring. I'll give you our rectangle. Huffman Street to Sherman to Harrison to State. We knocked on about 500 houses in that area. So we're learning along there as well. We got a whole bunch of data. We actually had 159 people participate in the survey. So 159 homes that were willing to say, here's what we like about our neighborhood, here's what concerns us about our neighborhood, what suggestions do you have for Headwaters and how to be a better neighbor, and we have a whole list of stuff. So we're crunching through the data. We went through it on the staff meeting today, passed it on to, I met with Bob and Chris Walker, and I'm forgetting Bob's last name. Anybody, the neighborhood association president. Met with them beforehand, allowed them to participate in what the survey asked, sent them all the data so that they have it, and we're going to sit down together and see if we can figure out how to partner on some activities as a church family in the neighborhood as well. When we bought this property, which was, it only seemed like a lifetime ago, it was February of 2019 when we took ownership of this place. We didn't know anything about any of the stuff you just saw. I didn't know Ron Dick's name. I'd never met him before and had no idea all this stuff was cooking. There was a guy trying to put a train museum on that property, and he tried to get a piece of our land before we even owned it. And I thought, I don't know what that means, but anyhow. So we've been through a few things. We've had 3 different people try to get portions of our property since we've owned it. I've had people try to talk me out of it. I had a guy tried to give him some of it. It's all kinds of good stuff that have gone on, and I just play the dumb pastor and go, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure nice talking to you, but I'm not a real estate guy. I don't know what's going on. Okay, I want to go over much of the stuff I went over Sunday morning with you, but in greater detail, okay? and then give you a chance to ask questions. And I know you hate standing up and talking into the microphones, but it would really help everyone else in the room to hear what you're asking if you would do that. We'd be very appreciative when we get to the Q&A time, okay? So here's the renovation idea. And again, the red property belongs to Headwaters Church. The green property is what Ron was just talking with you about. Some of our conversations there, you guys, have been with the city and with the developers. How can we make these two pieces of property work together? Can we support each other in some way, shape, or form? You saw some parking on our property. I've seen that parking look 100 different ways. And my theory is, if you take our soccer field, you build us a soccer field. That's what I thought the theory. What do you guys think of that idea? I thought, if you take our soccer field, you should build us a turf soccer field, because then we don't have to mow it, and that's a really good thing too. They haven't asked me many of my opinions at the meetings, as you can well imagine. Let's go over a little bit of history here of what's happened on this property. So just a brief history. These are 3 photographs from the past. The one on the left, you recognize, that is the picture we remodeled the chapel to look like. It was taken in 1953 of the chapel. The pews obviously aren't there, and the icons, we're not an icon church, so we don't have those. The building on the bottom right was the original orphanage. It was built in 1886, and I'll show you some more pictures of that, and you can't believe how large it actually is. And then the picture in the upper right is outside the chapel. You know that funny little shaped parking lot? That was a playground. So you can see the sister standing there and the kids on the, of course, horribly dangerous equipment that we all grew up on. You know, remember those stainless steel slides that you left part of your leg on because they blistered? It was so hot. Anyhow, this again was the original orphanage. I show you the picture to give you an idea of the magnitude. Look at the size of that thing compared to the building you're in now, because we think of our buildings as pretty big, and it dwarfs them. The building in front of it is building 4, and you can tell you could sit a couple of those inside of that. This is a photograph of some of the orphans getting ready for the Soapbox Derby, which was actually held, if any of you know Fort Wayne history, on Buter Road. Anybody know where Buter Road is? 3 of us know where Buter Road. Tim knows where it was the road where International Harvester Factory was on, right off of New Haven Avenue. So instead of turning on Coliseum Boulevard going out to New Haven, you go, that's Buter Road. They would shut the road down. The mayor of Fort Wayne I've read articles, interesting. That orphanage burned in 1949. According to the newspaper, it was spontaneous combustion. I'm thinking an orphan was having a cigar in the attic. That's what I'm thinking. I can't prove that. It's just a hunch, knowing little boy orphans, actually little boys in general. Anyhow, spontaneous combustion. I read the newspaper article. I'm tapping Matt. No, boy. Can you go back to that one, because it's not working? I had done so well, didn't you think? I mean, I got through 5 slides. I was rocking this thing. Yeah, we're too far. I need to go back. We have 7 buildings on campus. Can you find the overview of that, please? Go back to the 7. 7 buildings on campus. I'm going to quickly, again, go over those with you. The top one that is circled at the top of the screen is Building 1. That's Jacobs Avenue right up there. Wells Street is to your left over here, and you are in the gymnasiums at the bottom right, that little kind of grayish rectangle with the parking lots around it. Building number 1 has 12,000 square feet in it, you guys. It has an elevator. It has, actually, it's probably the nicest of the it was until we remodeled 2, the nicest of the out cottages, and it has 12,000 square feet of education space. We don't know for sure what to do with that, but we've talked about trying to find affordable daycare or something that could really help the neighbors again. You got a lot of single-parent homes. What if we could come alongside and figure out a way to come alongside some of these families? I don't know if you know anything about daycares. I know enough to be really dangerous, and I know they're dangerous to run, and they are difficult, and especially if you're trying to do it in a way to help people and not make a buck, right? In suburbia, you can put those in suburbia, you'll make money all day long, and you'll make a lot of it. But here, that wouldn't be the goal, right? So that's building one. It may have some other uses along the way as well. Building two is, I went too far. I'm too impatient. That's what it is, isn't it, Matt? Anyhow, building two, you already know, that's our remodeled offices, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment, some of the things that we've already accomplished. 8,000 square feet. It is also a community center, first floor for public use. Second floor is our staff offices with a conference room and all the amenities that go along with office space. The middle building, which is, I believe, I see, which is now circled there. That building is the newest. That's where that original orphanage stood, the one that burned from spontaneous combustion. That's right there, right in the center of the campus is where that was. It is the largest of the outbuildings. There are 30 dorm rooms inside. There's also an elevator in that building. It's 3 stories. There was a daycare below. It was at one time when the Y was here, it was a shelter for battered women for the YWCA. Prior to that, it was administrative offices and also sleeping quarters for the nuns who took care of the orphans here. 3,500 children lived on this campus, you guys, from right after the Civil War up until the middle of the 80s. So basically for 100 years, this campus was an orphanage, a residential orphanage. When foster parenting took over residential orphanages, they shut it down. Makes sense, there are no residential orphanages again anywhere. And so this building then kind of sat vacant. I think the unfortunate thing was that they turned all the utilities off, but they didn't drain the water out of it. And so all the pipes burst, and it's a beauty in there. That's what that is. And we're hoping to help say families have a place where we can come alongside some families and assist them in life. The next one, let's see if I did this right. Number 4, again, about 8,000 square feet. First floor, 410 Ministries. We've talked to you about that. Just take some time for these partnerships to, they sit and they kind of simmer and you work at it and you build the relationships and you talk to each other. Tammy Crane is the director of 410 Ministries, which is an outreach to gals in the adult entertainment industry, as well as sexually trafficked women in our city. Her husband, Doug, I think is chairman of the elders at Blackhawk, and great people. Doug was a pharmacist for many years. I don't know if he still is or not. But Building 5. The upstairs of that one's still yet to be determined. I think I told you, addiction counseling. We have an addiction counselor that wants to go in there maybe, trying to figure out if we're all on the same page about that. And we're trying to be careful about who our partnerships with so that we are honoring to what we stand for. Building 5 at the bottom, the one we thought we would get to the last, is probably going to be the one we touched next. Missionary housing on the upper floor. A little bit more about that in a little bit. And on the first floor is the medical dental clinic with Community Christian Health Services, where we will be bringing to our community here free health care for anybody who wants it. If you have insurance or not, if you just got a toothache, you want to go get cared for, you'll get cared for. And it's kind of a no questions asked type environment. But it is we want to tell you about Jesus type environment too. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. This circle there is around what we call Building 6. Building 6 is everything. It's by far the largest building. I think it's about 100,000 square feet, just this facility, with the 2 gyms, racquetball court, swimming pool, indoor track, all the classrooms, chapel, and so on. And you guys are pretty familiar with that, and that'll be a focal point of this evening. And Building 7 is right outside these walls. It was originally, you guys, it was the laundry for the orphanage. A couple weeks ago, I looked out my office window in Building 2, and there were 2 people with their faces pushed up against the window in building 4, and I thought, I don't know what they're doing, and I don't recognize them. So I walked down and said, hello, can I help you? And they were a brother and sister, probably in their mid-70s, and they both lived here as orphans. And the sister now lives in Washington State and had not been back since she was a child. They both lived here for a number of years. And I said, would you like to see inside? And they go, can we go in the tunnels? You're like, oh, of course. Everybody wants to go in the tunnels. So I took them in the tunnels. And I told them, I'm going to be over dramatic. I said, hey, you know what? This is your house. We're just the caretakers of it now. And we're hoping to get a reunion this summer for the existing orphans. We've run into some. They come on the campus. They look around. I tell you all that story. She says, I worked in the laundry. I ran one of those great big steam presses. I was 9 years old. She was in charge of the steam press at 9 years old. I don't know, but anyhow, that was in this building. That's right outside these walls was that laundry area, as well as the caretaker. There's an apartment there, and Andrew Gruber and his wife Sam live there for us, and they're caretakers of the property as well. We're using it just the way it was there. It's a nice 3-bedroom apartment along the way. So let's talk about the building we're in and get to the matter at hand, if you will. Again, very quickly, some of the things we've done. We've remodeled the restrooms on this floor. We spent a lot of money there on purpose because we're going to put an entrance right across from them. I'll show you that in a minute. And there's a reason why we did all that work now, even though it looks like, why did you do all that? It's such a strange priority. At the same time, things didn't look so good, and I've been sitting on this thing that Ron just told you about for over a year. I wasn't allowed to tell anybody about any of it. And I kept telling him, I said, would you mind going public with this so I would look less stupid than I do now in front of the own church? Anyhow, 2 classrooms downstairs have been remodeled as well. The youth area, again, brand new HVAC and lighting already done. There's still some work to be done in there, and some other plans to do with that. We have remodeled the classrooms upstairs. If you haven't been in those, by the way, were dining rooms. The first floor were dining rooms for the orphans, and that's why those sinks are in there. They had to scrape the plates. I took those 2 orphans in there. I said, tell me what you did in this room. I took those 2 people and I said, tell me what you did in this room. What happened here? And then 9 years old, steam press. Okay, I don't want to talk to you anymore about what you did. This sounds, I have no more plausible deniability about what happened at this place. But yeah, if you go in some of the classrooms, they have tiny little 1-inch square tiles. And you can tell some kitchen function happened there. So those first floors and all the crown molding and the beauty of those rooms, those were dining rooms for the children. And they would come over in the tunnels, and they would work. They had to, set the table, do the thing. And they told me that each older child was assigned at least 2 younger children that they had to care for. And so if you were 10 years old, you probably had 2 kids that you had to care for. And that meant make sure they make their bed, make sure they brush their teeth, make sure they it was like, wow, it's pretty interesting. So anyhow, we've done that. Those classes are amazing, right? There are 2 fewer classes there than what we have at Wallen Road for children. We'll get to that in just a second. And then there's the chapel that I showed you the picture of that we have now remodeled basically back to its original state. So again, these are the things done. Building 2 is completely done, other than some punch list things like my office doesn't have any doors, things of that nature. Not important stuff. You don't need doors on your office. These are all the lights that we've replaced on campus to date, as well as the green boxes, our new signage all over the campus. We learned that one in a hurry. It's not like Wallen Road where you pulled in and you had exactly 2 doors you could go to. Here you pull in, you go, there are 7 buildings. I have no idea what's going on. So we had to get some signage. And we've basically redone a lot of the parking. And the parking, as I've said on Sundays, turned out better. And the golf cart has arrived, just so you know. So if you want to be a part of golf cart ministry, you let us know. We'll be driving around helping folks get in the building who maybe have a tough time. Because we have enough parking, but it's not necessarily accessible parking. And so we especially want to help our seniors. So as we came back together, There were some problems that we anticipated. Again, I went over these on Sunday, and I'm going to show you in more detail how we're going to really, there are 12 problems. You could probably think of 5 more. Someone sent me an email about one I didn't list. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's probably 6 or 7 more. And when it rained 2 weeks ago, we learned about that problem. Any of you get your feet wet on that? And the water was just pouring down anyhow. So restrooms, parking, gym capacity, distance inside the building. That's a long ways to the nurseries from here. ABF space, there's no kitchen. Security, kids' classrooms, there are larger, fewer. There's no large gathering. We're going to address that shortly. Accessibility, sidewalk issues, a lot of broken sidewalks, you guys. It's just been here a long time. It's time to fix it up. We'll get it. Sound in the chapel and gym, we're getting better. Wayfinding, signage, and vehicular, and then the pool is hazardous. And so those 12 things are things that we want to go after. So in the next 12 months, I'm going to give you a 12-month remodel strategy, an 18-month, a 30-month, and then the big one's like 5 years away. And I mean, if Ron can talk about 10 years, I can certainly talk about 5, right? I think we can beat them. Well, let's get done before them. Let them look at our building. Anyhow, the 12-month plan is to get after, we have 5 things that we think we can accomplish in the next 12 months to completion. And they will go after that list of 12 issues right out of the box. So children's gym, that will give our children a large space for them together. You can't, a classroom is as big as they have right now. They come down here a little bit. That will also give us another large space to use, for, I don't know, meals or something of that nature if you wanted. That will begin next week, just so you know. So that project is heating and air conditioning and then a bunch of cosmetic stuff. And it'll be ready to go. So heating and air conditioning starts next week. 3rd floor classrooms, that would take care of the ABF issues. There are a bunch of classrooms up there. They're all demoed. How many of you worked on the 3rd floor classrooms? Man, we got to get some of you. I need to get some dirt under your fingernails. We got work to do. That's basically, that entire floor has been demoed. It's ready to be put back together. Again, HVAC is the big issue. We've already gutted that. It doesn't exist. And that's very doable. Fill in the pool. We had engineers in this week. I was asked by Phyllis Herendeen. I told you I was going to point you out. How are you going to fill the pool in? What are you going to do? And there are 3 ways to fill in a pool. And you can fill it full of rocks. You throw rocks in there and then you smash it down, compact it, throw more rocks in, compact it, throw it in, and then pour concrete over the top. That's one way. You can fill it full of foam, not like the kind out of a spray can that you put around your windows when it's breathing. They have things called geofoam, it's called, and there's these big blocks, and you stack them, you pour concrete over it, or you could span it, build a deck over the top of the empty pool, and you'd leave the hole underneath. And I already know what you're going to say. It'll open up for baptisms and that whole thing. I know what you're going to say. And we've seen the movie with that It's a Wonderful Life movie where the gym floor comes up and everybody jumps in the pool. I think they used to have that gym at that pool at Northside High School where the floor retracted and the pools. Am I right about that? Anybody go to Northside? Is that true, Sharon? I did not make that up. Sharon went there. There are pluses and minuses to all 3 of those. We're exploring all 3 right now. But we actually already have we're going to get some numbers to you tonight. And some of these we have numbers on. So the children's gym, we know how much it's going to cost. We have a bid to fill in the pool already. It's like $125,000. We'll fill it, and you get a concrete slab over the top of it. Okay, you don't have heating and air conditioning or new lights or anything, but you got a filled-in pool. Wells Street entrances across the front of Building 6, they're a mess. I don't know if you noticed that. I don't know why they did what they did. They built the ramps for handicap accessibility, and then they put the doors on backwards. So when you get to the top of the ramp, you can't get in the door because it swings out into you. It's like, who was in charge of the YWCA that did that? I bet it was Ron. Ron, did you design that? You sure? I found your fingerprints on some old documents around here, Ron. You just scratch your head sometimes going, how, what why? And so we got to fix all that, you guys. And we'll make them, when it's done, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be way more accessible. It's going to be way more friendly. If you're someone who's in a wheelchair, you have a tough time getting up ramps or stairs, we're going to take care of all of those things across the front, as well as that funny-shaped parking lot there that I said was the playground. We want to fix that too and get more handicap accessibility through there. Maybe even some circular drop-offs where you could actually pull up and just drop someone off and then go park and look for the golf cart. You get the end of that. Building 5, the apartment for missionaries. We're now tweaking architectural drawings on that, and we anticipate starting that in the very near future as well, and getting a place for Myron to live, which will be great for him because his new landlord just asked him to move on after 40 years in his apartment. So God's timing for him, and he's so excited. And I told you Myron is connected to Cedarville University, Grace College, Taylor University, and Cornerstone University. And the opportunity to do internships with those 4 universities. Fort Wayne's right in the middle of those 4. So we might be able to gather them and start doing ministry training, both for long-term missions, pastoral ministry, and some other things. And the top of Building 5 then becomes a really ministry training center. It'll be pretty amazing stuff. I wish I could take you over there now. You could see it. If you're in there, you go, I get it. As soon as you see it, you go, oh, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. So those are the things we can get done in the next 12 months. I would say by June 1st of next year, everything on that list will be completed, okay? And that's a good thing. That's a start. And the good news is if we're any good at this, I went too far again. It's too slow, man. Very funny girls. Stop. She yells, stop. No, leave it alone. It's a good idea, wasn't it, babe? It's my wife down here, and for those of you who didn't know. 12 to 18 months. The opportunity then to remodel the gathering space upstairs, that's just kind of, again, we've already demoed it. It's functioning, it's okay, but, you know, it's a concrete floor and unfinished walls, and, you know, it just needs a little bit of love. The kitchen will go in that space. We'll put some restrooms in that space. We'll remodel the racquetball rooms into meeting spaces. And then the south entrance that we talked about during that, which is a really cool project that will tear off these nasty, ugly stairs that should have never been built again, but there they are. We'll get rid of those. We'll put a ground level entrance in. We'll cut some holes through the concrete wall. When you walk in this building off of that parking lot, you'll be right outside those restrooms we just remodeled, okay? So all of that will get done, and the reason we're leaving the old carpet is because there's no reason to put new carpet down when you're going to cut holes in walls and redo everything. You guys understand the drill there, right? All right. This is a circle around that gathering space at the top of the stairs. If you went up there, that just open space right now with very undefined. And here are some renderings that Ron's group did for us. If you're standing here right now, this is the tall area. If you look off to the right, the doors there are the doors that come across to the track, just to give you a feel. And the windows will be looking down. There'll be a 2-story entrance there, and you'll be able to look down into it. Should be a pretty cool space. And just one of the neatest spaces in the facility right here. We think it deserves to have a little love. And then this is that's the back of the chapel. That's actually the door to the chapel on the right. It has the double doors on it right there. And a little library, and there's actually a fireplace in that drawing. Same thing from the other side. There's the steps going up. Coffee shop on your left, the kitchen's on the left. And now you're standing on the stairs looking down into it with a remodeled walkway. If you go straight down the walkway, that takes you to the ABF classrooms on the 3rd floor. And one of the problems that Ron and his group are helping us solve is we have no elevator to get there without going in the children's area, and we're going to solve that. as well. It's okay. Now this is the south entrance. This is right outside the gyms here. And this is a rendering of what that'll look like. Again, the stairs are torn off. We tier the little landscape walls to the left because we have some grade issues there that have to be done. Clear all the dirt out. You got a little flat space, which you'll see maybe in this one a little bit more. New entrance down here as well on this side of the gym. Just, again, accessibility, you guys, getting in and out of this place. It's come a long ways. There's a little courtyard. I thought maybe, 4 or 5 golf holes in there to practice your putting and chipping would be a good thing. I don't know if that'll work out or not, but we could work that in, I'm sure, couldn't we, Ron? I don't think that's even that hard to do. You just put a coffee can in the concrete when you... Do they still have coffee cans? I don't know anything about coffee cans. Again, you'll be able to drive right up, drop off at ground level. Person walks in. There's an elevator right to the right, stairs in front of you, bathrooms right on the left, and now you're into the facility. You do go up to go to the lobby area, but we'll kind of have a two-tiered foyer where you'll have a downstairs foyer and an upstairs foyer, and it'll be really cool. 18 to 30 months, and before I dive into all that, I just wanted to point out the goal here, and the goal is by 2024, this entire 180,000 square feet is basically finished, you guys. And so it is functioning, and it has been remodeled, and yeah, we've got 2.5 years of going, wow, we live in a remodel zone. Isn't that a lot of fun? But just think about that. It's not that far away. And for 2.5 years, if we just hang in here, we can have all this stuff done. Building 6 is completely finished, and we'll be on to many other things. This is the drawing of the elevator that we're going to take the existing elevator that goes 2 floors and add a 3rd floor to the existing elevator. Well, when you get there, there's no place to get off because you're up in the sky. So you have to add a little hallway off to the right there, and you come around, and that puts you on that walkway looking down into that foyer space that I just showed you along the way, and gives you some nice circulation. And again, you can take the elevator then to the 3rd floor, get to the ABFs up there, very simple, and go along the way. So that's your 30-month plan. This is the potential 5-year plan. And this is going to be an interesting conversation for us. Do we do this or not? Right? When we had the property out on Shoaf Road that we had an agreement with, and we had 45,000 square feet on Wallen Road, and we had 6 acres of land. And we had 35 acres of land promised to us on Shoaf Road, but the cost to build there was nothing there. It was like a soybean field or something. There'll be stuff there in a little while, but it hasn't gotten there. 60,000 square feet would have given us what? What's the percentage I just added? 1/3 to 45. I think that's right. Anyhow, 60,000 square feet. Probably $15 million, you guys, to get 15,000 extra square feet. We're going to have 180,000 square feet just in this building alone for a fraction of the cost. Just to do the math for you a little bit, understand from a fiscal perspective why this kind of makes sense. Forget all the other things. Even fiscally you can go, and then we have new neighbors that are going to spend a couple $100 million making the neighborhood look a little better, and all of a sudden our $3 million looks pretty good, doesn't it? So the real question for us moving forward will be, do we want to spend the money on one big room or not? Or are there other ways to invest the millions of dollars? It's millions of dollars to build that, okay? It's not $15 million, but it's still millions of dollars. And can we live in a swimming pool that holds 500 people and keep on trucking and multiply in other ways that don't require spending giant... Ron shouldn't be hearing me say this out loud, should he? It's not. But you get the idea, right? There's a lot of ways to do ministry. This is one of them, and this may very well happen. One of the great things in 30 months, here's what I want to tell you. I want you to catch this idea and this vision. We're going to be in great shape in 30 months with very little debt. At the end of this journey of remodeling this facility, and yeah, we're not going to have as big a room. It's going to be this size right here, and we already fill it twice on Sundays. Well, maybe we'll fill it 3 times, or maybe we'll live stream to the chapel, or I don't know what we'll do. Or maybe we build the big thing. So that'll be the thing in front of us along the way, and that has been discussed anywhere from 900 seats to 1,500 seats. This is one last rendering of, those are the racquetball spaces that will be turned into meeting spaces, potentially overflow space for the swimming pool as well. You can fit another 100 people, so now you can go from 500 to 600. Okay, I mean, there's just a few options here. But I guess I wanted to calm you and just say this. In 30 months' time, if we keep our focus here and just keep going and doing what we're doing, we can have this entire facility finished. We're in a building no bigger than this. That's okay. And we're doing ministry left and right. If we don't grow, we're okay. We're not putting ourselves in financial straits to get this 30-month plan done. Okay? We'll be in less debt than we were on Wallen Road. How's that sound? So by the time it all settles, that's where we'll end up. Now, Tim's going to come talk to you about some of those numbers that you want to hear about. But I'm going to take questions on what I just presented for, I'll give you 10 minutes if you want to ask questions. So please go to the microphones. Anybody who wants to ask questions, and I'll be happy to give you my best shot. And those of you in the know, help me if I don't know the answer, okay? Tell us who you are, Chris.
Sorry, Chris Oman.
Okay.
Question for you. You had mentioned kitchen. Going back to one of the things that was, when we first talked about this building, was having an industrial kitchen that we could use for outreach, community dinners, providing free dinners. Is that still in the scope of things? And related to that, we also talked about outreach activities that we would do on this campus. Is there any more discussion about that?
Yeah, sure. So the answer to your first question is yes, that it's still in the works to have an industrial type kitchen if we can pull it off. And I think we can. We have the space to do it, and should be a very interesting opportunity to do that. Outreach activities, we work on it every day. We have staff retreat coming up in June. Each staff member will present a philosophy of ministry and a 12-month action plan to go with that philosophy of ministry, which I will then sit down with each one of them and review that, as well as once that gets refined, they'll then present it to the elders and go over it with them. And one of the things I told them is, I'm not sure that you have to do a ton different than you're doing now, but you have to figure out how to tell more people about it. So one of the things that came out of the community survey, Chris, was that the community over there saying, boy, do you have anything you could offer kids? We offer all kinds of stuff for kids. They just don't know it, right? So we have to figure out to tell them what we do have. Then we have to be good listeners and say, well, what do you have in mind? Playground came up over and over. Sure be nice if the neighborhood had a playground. Feels like we could build a playground here, doesn't it? I don't know. It seems like we probably could. So maybe that could be an outreach into the neighborhood. I did tell you as a part of the 30-month plan are to put restrooms on the back of this facility, concession stand and restrooms, that these two gymnasiums, one of the benefits of moving to the pool, even though it's no bigger, is you clear this room out to be used for ministry in different ways, day after day, week after week. And if we can get to the place where we can isolate this facility security-wise for the people who are coming in here, this becomes an amazing ministry tool. It already is, but it can be even better. We can't wait to get there, to be honest with you. So we're working at it. Name, Brandon? Hi, Brandon.
Sorry. I just think it's really extremely unique that this is, Fort Wayne's full of Catholic schools and Catholic centers, and obviously the Catholic Church has taken a extremely hard left the past half decade. So I just think this is a really God-given, unique opportunity for what you would say the Protestant church, but just those who sincerely follow Christ to have something unique. obviously I have to commend God on that, but I was wondering if you're going to do anything with schooling that would be just an opportunity to have something that's just Christian based, that's not linked into the Catholic Church at all, that's completely unbiased and just, purity towards Christ, if that was something that you were looking into in the future.
Yeah, we've had, when we were selling our building at Wallen Road, we have a couple of schools that wanted to buy it, Brandon. So we started dialogues with a couple of those. One was a startup Christian school. There was a group that was supposed to come out of Chicago that was interested in planning a school. That was going to be more of a Canterbury type world. And none of those panned out, which is okay. This building looks like it should be a school. It was a school when we bought it. It has the facilities to support a school other than right now a kitchen, which, again, we're going to address that. I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't say it's in the top 5 things that we're planning on right now. And there's some pretty good Christian schools in our community already. So we'd want to find our niche and figure out how to work together. And maybe there's a little hybrid model or something we can do. But I would not say that that's off the table at all. No one's at a microphone. Here comes Rose. While Rose is coming, someone should go to that one. Let's just keep this thing rocking and rolling. Hi, Rose.
Hi, I'm Rose Hensley. I was wondering, because this building is so old and so beautiful, are we having to make any accommodations for the historic preservation of this building?
Oh, great question. So I want to get it right, Rose. These buildings are registered with the National Historic Registry. So they do have historic trademarks to them. We can't just do anything we want, okay? They are not registered. That's in like DC or someplace. I don't know where that is. They are not registered with the state of Indiana, and they're not registered historically locally, but they are registered nationally. And as near as we can tell, we are responsible to preserve the exterior of those, which we're delighted to do anyhow. And we took it a step farther with the chapel, returned it back to what it used to look like from what the Y did to it, which it was like, really? A dance studio with mirrors? That's what the Y did with it anyhow. And I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room. I shouldn't be so critical probably. A square foot was a square foot to those folks, and to us it's not. And there's a lot of history here, and that's why we started with the history. We want to preserve that. We want to honor that. And every chance we can, that's absolutely what we want to do. We've not run into anything that has required us on the interior to meet specific historical requirements, although we've done that. And then the building you're in right now is not part of the historically registered part. This was built in the mid-'80s. I think it has to be at least 50 years old to be a historical building. So there are parts of the campus that are historical, parts of them are not. Anybody else? Well, we have no intention of tearing it down, Randy, that we know of. It's pretty big and pretty tall, and it is the one thing you kind of see when you drive by. Although it looks like Ron's putting up stuff that's going to distract people. They're not going to see our campus when they come around the corner, are they? They're going to go, soccer stadium. And that's great. We're happy for the city of Fort Wayne. We think, by the way, Wells Reserve is an amazing addition to the city in general. And Ron didn't oversell it. I think this whole area will become a focal point for northern Indiana, not just Fort Wayne. And I'm not downgrading it. I'm just saying it's going to be like a magnet. And some of the other things they're talking about doing to Lawton Park, it's going to be unbelievable. So all that's just right here, walkable. But no, Randy, We didn't mean to leave the smokestack out. Do you have a natural affection for the smokestack in some way? It just speaks to you? We thought maybe a large plaster Jesus maybe on top of it. Lasers coming out of his eyes. Have you seen that one down by Cincinnati that caught on fire? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? No. Yeah, this one. Yeah, that one. And it caught on fire, lightning hit it and burned it up. I don't know if you guys knew that story. And the pastor's wife designed it down there. I read the story of it when it burned, and they rebuilt it.
Hi, Chad Neely.
Hey, Chad.
Just a couple questions. One, Ron, I believe it was, and then also you mentioned the parking for the new stadium taking up part of our land. Is that eminent domain they're claiming on that, or how is that or are we just donating it, or what's the plan on that?
Neither one of those.
Okay.
So Ron and I, again, I think Ron would fairly say that parking lot's morphed into different shapes and sizes and places as long as we put it on here. And I'm guessing that what he showed is not the final shape of that along the way. Parking, though, is not inexpensive. So if we can get our soccer friends to build us parking, that's a win for us because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to build that.
All right. Just curious how that was. The other question I have, I'm a huge fan of making sure we reach out to the community here. I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that's the whole reason we're here. My question, though, is the VBS is a great example. In the past, we've actually had to turn away children from VBS that weren't part of the church to begin with because we didn't have enough volunteers to even cover the number of children in the church for VBS, Awana, different stuff like that. We have a huge volunteer issue getting enough. What's the plan to make sure that if we're planning on bringing in all the kids from the neighborhood to make sure that we have the infrastructure people-wise to cover that if we're not even covering the 1,000 people we have in the church now?
Right. I don't know.
Okay. I'm not trying to be a problem, just...
No, I mean, it's real. I mean, we're gonna hold the flag up and go, hey, we need help. And you serve in Awana, you know what it's like, and it's an amazing thing. And I don't think it's gonna get less amazing. So, what we've tried to do here for the last 30 years is not race ahead of the leadership that we have. So we're not starting 15 new ministries when we don't have the leaders for the ones we already have. Or maybe we have to shut something down if we think something's better. But that will be something Miss Erin will be working hard on. I haven't been around a children's ministry director yet that didn't struggle to find enough volunteers to help with the kiddos.
Absolutely.
So step up.
Josh Gunter.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Josh, where do you live?
My house is on most of your pictures here.
Josh, one of our new neighbors, he lives right across the street on Wells, and his family's on our property all the time. It's beautiful.
It's great. If you take that sidewalk out there and cross Wells Street, you go straight up my sidewalk.
He's serving donuts and coffee after this meeting, so go right on over.
You weren't supposed to tell.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
With the other local ministries around here, like Hope Alive, Caddy Corner to here, and Heart of the City down on Cass Street, how are you trying to work with them to expand what they've got, to share what you've got, and to incorporate together for the greater good of the community?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one we're really sensitive about. You saw last Sunday, you were here last Sunday, Josh. So inasmuch, let's just use that one as an example, which is a ministry of Broadway Christian Church at the corner of Berry and Broadway, and inasmuch as I'm Washington. They do such an amazing job. So our purpose was, let's not open a food bank. Let's help them be successful at their food bank. We don't need another food bank, but we can volunteer our service, our time, our finances to help them be successful. So in the neighborhood, we're learning what churches do and don't do. We've had conversations with Mission Church a couple blocks down, and the conversation's been, what do you do? And they tell us and we said, we won't do anything that you do. So like, they have a laundry ministry there. And they've had great success with the laundry ministry. We don't want to come in and have 5 washing machines if they've only got 3 and act like we're the big shots, right? So we want to support them in that. They fix bicycles. We're not going to fix bicycles. They do an amazing Christmas Eve outreach. We want to honor that and support them in that. We have to be careful to not overwhelm a smaller ministry because we just have sheer numbers. And so, Great America Cleanup, the first year, there were 100 people here, and 95 of them were from Headwaters. Okay? So, I mean, you kind of are this obnoxious blob sometimes, too. So, we want to honor all the ministries in the area and maybe find some gaps. That's why we did the community survey to say what's here, what isn't here. Maybe there's something we can do that no one else is doing. The health clinic's a great example. There's nothing around here. Matthew 25 is over on Jefferson, if my memory's any good. That's the closest clinic. So I appreciate your sensitivity to that. I can only tell you that we're sensitive to it as well. And it's a little trickier if you're considered the larger church. The smaller churches don't always want you participating with them. We'll honor that. And we'd love to partner with any of them if they want to. Walk down Putnam Street, Trinity Methodist Church. They've got some things going on. Took pictures of all their signs to see how they're doing their business and what we could learn from them, and if there's anything for us to do there as well. But you live in the neighborhood, you know better than I do. So hopefully we're going to be good neighbors and honor them. Are you going to ask this question in Spanish, Jen?
No.
Okay. Who are you?
I'm Jen Howie.
Jen heads up Spanish translation for us on a weekly basis. She doesn't do it every single week.
No.
Most weeks, though. And she's got a team of people. If you speak Spanish, she would love for you to help her. And we need to, this is an area where, again, I think we have some opportunities here to do some special stuff because Miss Jen exists. And that's how a church works. The beauty of a church, you guys, I'll get to your question maybe, Jen, if I can keep talking. The beauty of a church is it is pooled skills and hearts. And where one person doesn't have a heart, maybe someone does. Where one person can't do something, maybe someone else can. And collectively, we're really powerful. We may not be that powerful singularly, but together we're great. So thank you, Jen, for what you're doing for Spanish. I drive her crazy because I send her my notes at the awful times of the day, and she's just like, okay, anyhow, go ahead. I feel better about me. I confess my sin. Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't going to ask about translating ministry. Kind of the same question. Do you see us kind of, besides the community stuff, are we going to be open to partnering with other Fort Wayne churches that are also kind of big? Or are we just kind of going to be to ourselves? Because, and I only ask because I work at a private Christian school that isn't part of Headwaters. You know what I mean? Like, how are we going to...
I do know you work at Blackhawk.
Yeah.
So go right ahead.
Like, is that something we want to do? Just because, like, we've been in the news and stuff like that. Like, how are we going to be...
Yeah, we're pretty special, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess second of all, sure, let me ask about, Spanish ministry. Like, where do you see that going? Because I think there's definitely a lot of potential there. So,
Can I go after your second question first? Yeah. I think Spanish ministry is going to go where you help take it, Miss Jen. So that's what I think is going to happen there. But, I don't mean that facetiously. I don't have any ability to tell you where it needs to go. You have to tell us. I do think there's a great Latino community in Fort Wayne that it would be amazing to get the gospel to them. I don't know, you know that community better than I do. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I hope I live long enough to watch it do amazing things. And who knows? I'd love to hire Spanish pastors. I'd love to blow that up every which way possible. What was your first? Oh, yeah, other churches that aren't smaller. It's an interesting dynamic being a pastor, okay? And there is some territorialism that goes on. And it's a tricky thing. Some of you folks probably attended different churches, and now you're at this one. Well, I have lunch with your former pastors. What do you think that's like for everybody in the room, right? It's not easy. And there's a whole bunch of people who used to call this church home that are at other places. And it creates an interesting dynamic. When Kevin Rivers came, he's the pastor at Blackhawk, by the way, young fella, 29 when he came. I just had to put my arms around him and go, hey, can I burp you? Because you're really young. I didn't really do that. But I took Kevin to lunch. I was the first pastor to take him to lunch. And I said, Kevin, let me tell you what's going to happen in Fort Wayne. People are going to come from our church. They're going to be a part of your ministry. People are going to come from your church. They're going to be a part of our ministry. I'll make you a deal. And he goes, what's that? I said, I won't believe what they say about you if you don't believe what they say about me. And I appreciate you laughing, but I'm being serious. Because we get filleted, and it's just part of it, okay? I'm not mad about it. I'm not even hurt about it. Well, sometimes I'm hurt about it, but I'm not mad about it. But Kevin and I have a great relationship. I'm friends with Ron Williams. The chapel's going through a pretty big transition right now, but Rick Hawks was my mentor. I could call him any time of the day, and he'd pick the phone up if he thought he needed. So we're friends. We're in this together, but it's not easy. And right now, if I can be straight up with you, there's a lot of churches hurting because of COVID. And because people got out of that, I mean, they haven't been here in a year. They don't even know if they're part of this church anymore. I don't know who's a part of this church anymore. And it's just been a time where we've seen a greater shuffling of people between ministries than I've seen in a long, long time. And it is not easy, Jen. So I love those guys. I admire anybody who's willing to try to do what we're doing. And I encourage you, not because I am the pastor. If you know a pastor, support him. It doesn't mean he's perfect. I can guarantee you he's not. I live with him. And he's a mess. But that neither here nor there. But what I've come to this conclusion, any man who is willing to love Jesus enough to even try this, I'm there with him. And if he gets his head handed to him or he falls in sin or whatever it is, I want to be there next to him because I want to pick him up. And we have a bunch of former pastors that call this church home now. And I bet I'm over my time now. I'm way over my time. Were you going to ask a question, Nancy? Or are you just standing there holding the floor in place? Tim, please come. You have 6 whole minutes to do your thing. And honest, we didn't want this evening to be about money primarily anyhow. I want you to be excited about what's coming. God will take care of the finances. We'll figure that out. And when we don't have money, we don't spend it. So we'll go as slow or as fast as the funds allow us to go, okay? And we won't get ourselves in trouble. That's just not what we do. Deal? Live long and prosper or whatever it is.
Hey, John? That's one way to make sure the presentation doesn't go too long is take it with you. So as John mentioned, we're not going to spend a ton of time on finances because really what we're trying to do with these initial series of meetings is just cast a vision. And so what I want to do is just kind of quickly, and I did the same thing. Just kind of go over quickly some estimated costs and then what the at least initial preliminary plan on approaching paying for this sort of looks like. And so again, as John mentioned, phase 1 includes your 3rd floor classrooms, the children's or reception gym, filling in the pool, doing the chapel exterior area, parking and outside of that, and the missionaries apartment. The kind of the middle estimate cost for all those things is somewhere around $750,000. So then if we move on to phase 2, that included that gathering common area upstairs outside of the children's check-in area. It includes the kitchen, which is probably phase 1 of a 2-phase kitchen. So that will just include blocking in the actual footprint of the kitchen and laying it out so that it can sooner or later become a commercial grade kitchen, but initially it might be just more of a warming kitchen. We actually do already have many of the commercial pieces of equipment for that kitchen, but configuring it with the infrastructure is expensive, so that might again be a two-phase thing. And then the support areas, those were the restrooms upstairs, and a few of the other areas up there. So all that is just a little over $1 million. And then for the third phase that we talked about, being the south vestibule, the increased or enhanced entrance there, moving the elevator, extending it up to the third floor, and also the circulation area around that gets you over into the third floor classrooms, turning or converting the pool, which by that point in time would have the floor in it, now converting that to a worship center sanctuary. The south vestibule, again, the new entrance to the south, and then the gym and restrooms that John talked about over here is about $1.6 million for all of that. And so in terms of funding for that, there's a couple of different ways that we've been thinking about approaching this, and one that I kind of went over very briefly earlier is just involves taking the current cash that we have and then taking some excess income that we have had a history of collecting, then taking our budgeted Amplify income for the entire year of 2021, we budgeted $225,000 of that. And then when we actually do get the lease to own agreement inked with Harvest Fellowship, which, by the way, the last minute update on that as of this afternoon is that their real estate attorney has gone back and forth with my counterpart there, whose name is Brian, and Brian is himself a former attorney. They've gone back and forth a couple of times, just making some very minor adjustments to the agreement. I expect to get that back possibly even as early as this weekend or by the beginning to mid part of next week. Then I'll review that. We'll look at it as elders. I'll also send it off to our real estate attorney. But there is nothing in any of the inspections that Harvest was very meticulous about doing in the building or anything in the drafts of the agreement so far that is anything even close to being a showstopper. And Brian reaffirmed that today in his communication to me that this still looks like it's a green light. So I'm hopeful that by the beginning of June, the 1st of June, we will have an agreement signed, and then Harvest can begin using that facility for ministry. What that means to us in terms of this discussion is that agreement includes a $500,000 upfront purchase option fee that they will pay to us in cash. And so we would have that money available to us. Then, for the remainder of the year, they're going to pay us $15,000 a month to actually rent the building, and that totals $105,000. And then we had talked about taking our existing bridge loan, which, by the way, is a little over 2 years old. That was originally a 2-year loan. It's been extended 120 days, and the expiration date on that is now June 26th. So by June 26th, we'll need to come up with a different mode of financing going forward. But what we had talked about doing is basically renewing for another bridge/construction style loan, but also borrowing another $500,000 to help fund some of these things that we're talking about doing. So that's been kind of the plan going forward, and that comes to about $1.755 million. There, though, in more recent discussions, we've talked about an alternative way of approaching this that just has a slight twist to it. And part of the twist to this comes from kind of our original thought of when we purchased this building for $3.25 million, we put $100,000 down, and then we took the original bridge loan out for 2 years against a principal of $3.15 million. And that's what we've been carrying for the last 2 years and are talking about renewing. But the idea is that as soon as we disposed of the Wallen Road property, and I use dispose in kind of a transactional sense, not that we're throwing it away, but as soon as we have disposed of that property, we'd take the proceeds of that and basically pay off the note that we used to acquire this building sort of as is. And so our initial hopes were, of course, is that that would be a cash upfront sale, and we would write that note off, and we'd be free and clear to now begin doing whatever improvements we wanted with whatever funding we had or borrowed. But obviously, we didn't have a cash upfront buyer for the building, but we are entering into what certainly seems like is going to be a lease to own. So we won't see a bulk of that financial transaction proceeds until the end of 5 years when we get a balloon payment. But what we had talked about doing was going ahead and renewing our bridge loan, putting borrowing an additional $5,000 or $500,000. So we would take that $500,000 with the $500,000 that we get with the lease upfront payment. That gives us another $1 million on top of the cash that we have, as I just went through. Rather than doing that, though, what we've talked about lately is taking the $500,000 that we would get from the option fee upfront from Harvest, paying down the existing bridge loan, taking that from 3.15 down to 2.65, and then terming that loan out, setting it aside and terming it out, and then taking the $15,000 a month lease payment that we get from Harvest and servicing that debt entirely with it until we get the balloon payment, and we would pay off the rest of that loan. And what that does is it keeps, again, back into the original spirit of using the disposal of the Wallen Road facility to service the original debt. It basically takes it off of our books effectively. Obviously, there's still cash that transacts, but it doesn't affect our operating budget at all because the note is serviced by the lease payments that we'll get. And then when we get the balloon payment, it pays off the rest of the note, and we'll probably have just a little bit of cash left over from that. What that then means is that what we would do is we would take a construction loan in draws as we need it to fund further capital improvements that we've just talked about. And so that's sort of the approach that we're talking about taking. So what this slide shows, if you can even begin to see it, is it takes that lease option fee income out of there and decreases that total that we would have available to us in 2021 to just over $1 million. And so at the pace that we're going to be doing development this year, we would need to borrow probably just about another $300,000. And of course, this is somewhat artificial precision because we don't have final contractor and subcontractor bid estimates on all these things yet. But with the projected cash flows, we would only need to borrow sometime later this year, maybe another $300,000 if we don't raise that much, because what we haven't done and what we'll talk about doing at a later date is having a couple of large offering opportunities and try to amp up, if you will, our giving on top of what we've already budgeted. And that would diminish what we might even need to borrow yet this year. So Ron had mentioned that financial viability is one of the objectives of the North River project. I think that's a pretty good idea, and I hope that just that quick review gives you a sense that these things that we're talking about doing over the next 18 to 30 months are well within financial viability. In fact, we can borrow at our current giving and our current budget rates, we could borrow approximately another $2 million and still be within our sort of threshold that we have operated by for as long as I've been here, which is going on 30 years, to where we never let our debt service exceed 15% of our overall giving budget. And so there's a lot of headroom for us to be able to do some things. If we need to borrow more money, we financially have the wherewithal to do that, but obviously we'd like to do that only on an as-needed basis. And so, like I said, we'll probably be coming back to you before June 26th when we need to enter into another financial agreement, because that will require a congregational approval. But we'll have more details available for you And what I'd like to do is I hope to be able to provide some of those details even ahead of that meeting, so you have a little bit of time to digest those things before we ask you to make any kind of a vote on that. So we are already past 8, but I think we could probably take a couple minutes for questions. I know that's a lot of numbers and things in a very brief amount of time. The question is the lease income $15,000 a month? That's what the agreement would stipulate, yes. That's for the remainder of 2021. And by the way, that lease agreement increases by 3% each subsequent year. So years 2 through 5 is 3%, and then 6%, 9%, 12% more. Okay, I think everybody would like to go home. So, again, thank you all so much for your interest and for coming tonight. And if you would join me, I'd like to just dismiss us with a word of prayer. Father, I don't know who of us 3 years ago, when we really started down this road in earnest, had any idea that you would bring us to this point where we are today. I think we might have hoped. We certainly prayed. But God, you have delivered so much above and beyond what most of us thought was likely or even possible that we just stand in awe here at what you've done. But Father, even more awesome are the opportunities that you've seemed to be lying ahead of us. And God, I pray that you would just inspire us, enable us, equip us, and give us the perseverance that's going to be required to wring the most out of all those opportunities so that we might make your name great. That people in this community who don't know you learn who you are, and more importantly, Lord, that they learn about your Son, their need for him, and what he's done on their behalf, just as he's done for all of us, so that they might be grateful, that they might give praise to you and give you all the glory that you're due. And Father, we're just humbled and honored to be a part of this. We're humbled and honored to be laying a foundation for hopefully generations to come to make use of this facility for your great name. And we thank you again for this time together tonight, for bringing us all back together as a church. And we just look forward to what you're going to do in the days ahead. And we thank you in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you, everyone.